Tom Davis here from DBT Magazine. We're out here at the Glen Helen 10 Hour 2025, riding a 2025 GasGas EC450. Full disclosure, when we first got word that we were going to get this bike to ride, we weren't completely excited. We're kind of, all of us are off-road, close course racers and motocrossers, and this bike really didn't seem to tick the boxes. Once we dug into it though, we were really pleasantly surprised. The bike is really good. Kind of makes you rethink what you need out of an off-road race bike. Power delivery is very smooth. Stock suspension was too soft, we addressed that. Just a basic revalve on the forks with stiffer springs, and a revalve on the shock with stiffer springs as well. We put a precision damper on it, some handguards, a skid plate, tires and mousses, and we're ready to run. Like I said, this bike, when you look at the spec of this bike, it kind of seems like an afterthought. There's a lot of mishmash parts and things like that, but there was definitely some thought that went into it because it works very well. We'll see how we go at the end of the day. First session done. I think I said earlier that when we first got this bike, you know, full disclosure, we weren't too terribly excited about it. It kind of seemed like an afterthought, not really our bag, not a type of bike that we would buy necessarily. After riding it a lot, even before today, we've changed our tune considerably. This might be the best endurance bike that we've ever had, and we've had quite a few. The ease with which you can ride this thing and the amount of energy that you save doing it is pretty impressive. The engine is just so forgiving. The course today is, if you're familiar with West Coast Glen Helen type conditions, it's like marbles on top of concrete with hardened rain ruts and all this stuff. Very, very tricky, very hard to get traction. And with this bike, you don't even really have to think about it. You can open the throttle and it hooks up and drives, and you can carry good speed with it. And you don't have to think about the throttle control so much. And on any other bike that I've ever ridden on that stuff, you have to really tiptoe. So, you know, kudos to GasGas for putting a combination of stuff together that we didn't think was well thought out, but apparently it really was. Really good bike. Really had a good time.
All right, so I'm fresh off, still sweaty. Just put 4 laps on the EC, and I really can't say enough good things about it. I'm honestly struggling to even put some of the things into words because it worked so well up there. There's a lot of really slippery, powdery, you know, kind of hair scramble type course up there, and the calmer, more enduro focused 450 motor, but opened up a little bit after we put the open exhaust on it, is like the perfect motor up there. You can slip and slide a little bit around the insides where a lot of bikes are really struggling for traction. And it just feels like it just finds traction, and you can just push in areas you otherwise couldn't. And it felt like the energy that I put into it, you know, we were kind of on the fence between going 3 laps or 4 laps, and I just waved to the guys I went by going out on the 4th lap. I'm fine, I don't need to get off. In fact, I could have probably kept going, but yeah, the bike worked really good. I mean, as far as like this, just for pretty much just a bone stock, nothing really fancy done, just valving suspension and an exhaust. We did put a stabilizer on it, but other than that, it's probably the best bike we've ever ridden at like this kind of an endurance race where you want something that's a little calmer. I mean, maybe if you were doing like a hot lap on the motocross track, you might be able to do it faster on the moto version of that bike. But for a lot of guys, I bet they could do a moto faster on this bike than the full race bike, just because they wouldn't be working so hard and chasing it around so much. So it worked really good.
Better or worse than the 350? Which would you take?
Boy, I love that 350 too. I mean, we had a really good time riding that. But honestly, I think this is more versatile for this type of riding, and also I loved that 350 and it worked really good, but it's a little bit different riding style. It's a little more, using the RPM, carrying a higher, maybe a lower gear and letting it buzz, where the 450, this is kind of almost like a 350-esque type ride, because it doesn't pull and punish you so hard like a full race 450. So in that sense, it's a little bit like the 350, where you get off it and you just don't feel so abused. It's not yanking your arms out, but it's got the torque. So if you want to ride it like I typically do, a little more, lower RPM, just smooth and not necessarily blowing up corners, but just trying to maintain momentum. Personally, the 450 was better for me. Both great bikes, but riding this thing is making me think I might want to buy one. So that's a testament, I think. So it was fun. I'm looking forward to getting back on in a little while.
It's Rowan from Costa Mesa, just giving a quick rundown on how the bike felt today. 2025 EX450 GasGas. Oh, EC450 GasGas. And so for me, I'm the lightest and the fastest guy on the bike today. And
what do you normally ride?
I normally ride a 252 stroke. So being on a 454 stroke, the bike felt just easy to ride. Like there's just so much power. You can lug it, you can rev it. And so there were times when I really wanted to push, and great power all the way through the range, except for in the tight stuff, there was just a little mapping issue that we had. So the bike was, if I lost balance and I was accidentally jerking the throttle, then I had a risk of flame out. So I did stall a couple times, never really cost us that much time, but just a slight little mapping issue. But once you got past quarter throttle and into full throttle, the bike is just a rocket. 6-speed transmission out on the truck track. I just felt like I was the fastest bike out there. So power is amazing, being on the 450, and always at these kind of events, the handling is a compromise. Being the lightest in the team, they set up the bike mostly so that the rear will hold up. So it needs a lot of shock spring to be able to do that. So it's a few rates up from where I would normally have it. And so, but still the team likes to have comfortable forks. So between the stiff shock and the comfortable forks, that tends to make the front of the bike dip. It's already got quite short forks. And to me, that pitching was quite uncomfortable at the limit. Of course, I could stand up on the pegs and I could flow and just cruise, and it felt wonderful. But when I really wanted to push, the bike was a little bit of a handful, particularly on the off-camber corners. I would find myself washing the front end and running over my foot. So I'd run over my foot, But mostly, like, it's not all off-cambers. There's plenty of rut turns, there's plenty of berms, and so in those situations, and when I'm not at the limit, the bike felt amazing. We get all the pluses of the comfortable fork. Like it just soaks up everything in the slow going, in the creek beds, over the little rocks. It felt amazing. So there's upsides and downsides, and just the balance was a little bit more towards soft front and stiff rear, and so that took some getting used to. I got to give it up to the team. I mean, we ran more sag than what we typically would, and I still struggled with like tucking the front a little bit. So I mean, today was dry and dusty, so traction was pretty limited to begin with. I mean, we had great tires, but I just was kind of fighting the bike a little bit. Yeah, it's not really a comparison, but I have ridden the 350 XEF, granted with better traction, and so I felt a bit more comfortable on the 350, being a little lighter and so forth. But overall, I had so much fun on the GasGas. It's supposed to be the cheap bike with the cheap clutch and the cheap brakes, especially on the 450. You'd think that it would test that, but I didn't have any complaints about clutch actuation or the brakes. Granted, it's not a back-to-back, like we're not switching from a Brembo bike to a Brake Tech bike, but still I was satisfied, we'll say, with the performance of the controls. So it didn't feel like much of a compromise to me, and I just had a tremendous amount of fun being able to compete with these guys and having just a really nice platform like a GasGas.
Hey guys, Robert Bear here with Dirt Bike Test. Today we're out here at 10 Hours of Glen Helen at the endurance race, testing this GasGas
EC450.
Should I start over? This EC450 GasGas. Really, it's pretty much stock with a different muffler that woke it up a little bit, and some Dunlop tires. The bike ran good all day. TCS, Todd Davis, did the suspension, forks and shock. Still running the Explorer open cartridge forks, and to my surprise, they worked really, really good. All that off-road stuff out in up in the top today, lots of silt ruts. Just super dusty and crazy. The bike was flawless. It ran great all day, handled good, no crashes, no spills. The power's really super smooth with this muffler, opened it up. It just was a good bike, flawless all day, and I really enjoyed it. We ended up taking a little sag out of the rear end for one of the teammates and myself, our second rotation, just because we have a little bit of a diversified team here, ranging from like 225 pounds to 160. So it definitely makes the bike a little stink buggish. We try to set it for the middle weight, but today we had a little thought process and stopped for a minute and actually took 2 turns out of the shock, dropped at about 10 millimeters, and for me it was much better. The bike was amazing, actually.
Do you prefer this, or do you prefer the 350 you guys raced last year?
Honestly, I'd prefer the 350 that I rode last year, because I'm a 250 two-stroke guy, and I like the rev, and I like the lighter bike. This bike definitely feels a little heavier, and it has a lot of power. So if you ride it like a 250, because you're used to riding a 250, it kind of pulls on you and wears you out, and you can make mistakes. But that's just me. That's if I rode it all the time, I'd learn to ride it. I'm just used to riding something that you kind of squeeze a little power out of, and you can't do that with this. But honestly, it's a really, really good 450. If I was in the market for a 450, I would buy one of these.
Suspension wise, you have a Husky Dual Sport. How does this Explorer fork compare to what you had on your Dual Sport when you were running the Explorer?
Funny you should ask, because my Dual Sport's an FE350 Husky, and Todd tells me the forks are the same and actually have the same valving in them as this bike we raced today, and to me they feel nothing alike. So maybe it's chassis, maybe it's the 350 FE motor's soft, I don't know. I think the chassis is a little flexy. This bike, there's no comparison. This bike is so much better than the FE350, and the forks on the FE350, even though Todd tells me they're the same, feel completely different, and it's got to be the bike.
So 2025 Glen Helen 10-hour end of the day, end of the race. We talked about mid-race about how the bike was performing and what we did to it. It was pretty flawless, reliability, no complaints. The engine on this bike, if you're a certain person, it will make you question how much power you really need. And I think this is the biggest thing about it is the delivery of the power and the way that you're able to get off corners. Really almost makes you rethink your either motocross bike or XC bike. I would really be curious to do lap times on this thing in comparison to my XCF. I have a 25 XCF, and just the way I could get it off a corner, and because of the power delivery and how smooth and how easy it is to ride, and especially like late in the day. Like Rowan is our anchor on the team, and he's much faster than the rest of us old guys, but he threw down his fastest lap on his next to last lap when the course was at its absolute worst, which is just a testament to how easy the thing is to ride. And I know he had some issues with the forks and stuff, but he's 160 pounds, and like truthfully, like our heaviest guys are 220, so it's a little off. At some point, maybe we'll set a bike up for him, but it would bottom out too much for us. But anyway, the fork is a really interesting thing. These forks are much maligned. Okay, if you read interwebs and you hear about them and all this stuff, it's like they're junk and you need to spend all this money on them, and we were pleasantly surprised with how good you could make this fork without a lot of money. And this bike in general, like we put literally like a stock SXF silencer on it that you could probably pick up on eBay for 30 bucks, and it was a radical improvement. If
any kind of like mapping issues, maybe just because it's a little opened up?
I don't necessarily know if it was related to the pipe, and it was primarily, we never really felt it while we were testing the bike because we primarily tested it on a motocross track. When the stuff got tight and you're going from off throttle to on, and if you weren't smooth with it, it had a hiccup and a cough. So it's something way down low in the map that I'm sure could be fixed relatively easily. One of the things that I would really love to try with a company that we've had great success with on our two-stroke 300 GasGas is Two-Stroke Performance has a map box for this thing that I would just love to try their maps on this bike. They are known for their enduro stuff and world enduro, and they're involved in all this stuff, and I would be willing to bet that they have something really good for this bike. So, you know, quick shout out to them if we would really like to try that unit on this bike. I think it would make an enormous difference. All in total amount of money put into this bike is very low. We literally put a damper on it, did the suspension for a basic revalve, no crazy parts or anything like that, skid plate handguards, you know, a stock silencer off of a motocross bike, pretty basic build. It ran flawlessly, and we were able to ride it late in the day, really tired, and again, really impressed with this bike, and I really had no interest in it when we got it. And I think that's the biggest thing about it. It makes you rethink. If you're like a desert guy and you dabble in motocross and or Grand Prix, you should consider one of these bikes, whether it's the XCW or this bike, or there's a Husky version of this as well. It'll make you rethink. Like if you really spend some time on it and get to know it, they're really pretty good. I don't know that I've ridden an endurance bike that we've built that's been better than this, especially late in the day. The motor is so forgiving and so easy to ride. It really... Transmission. The ratios, interestingly enough, this is a 6-speed transmission. And some of the differences between XCF and this bike, so this is a 6-speed, the new XCF KTM is also a 6-speed, but the ratios are different. So 3rd through 6th are basically the same, and this is according to the manual. The XCF has taller first and second, and this has lower first and second, which you almost don't even ever need first or second. Like with stock gearing, 3rd gear and the tightest stuff that you can imagine, it was fine. Like no threat of stalling, really easy roll on, all that stuff. Having a 6th gear doesn't seem like a big deal until you get to a race like this and you're in that really fast stuff and you're able to lower the revs. It's not like you want to go 100 miles an hour, but you're going 75 with a really, really low rev ceiling, and the bike just calms down. And it makes all that fast stuff seem much safer. That's the biggest thing I can say about the 6-speed that I think is an improvement. Something about this bike that's kind of overlooked is the fan, which was on a lot today. Like, surprisingly, you could hear it in all the tight stuff almost all day, even when it was cool in the morning. So that's a big deal. These bikes run hot. It comes stock. What else? Brake Tech brakes. Much maligned. Again, and I don't like the progressiveness of them in relation to a Brembo, but it's not that big a deal. Like, I really noticed it more on the two-stroke that we're testing with the 300, and it just kind of feels more like an on-off switch, but when you add some engine braking to it, no issues. We didn't fade the rear. We had one set of pads, lasted for 10 hours. Something else, we ran, I don't know what the mileage is, but we ran 10 hours. We did about 33, 34 laps. We used 10 gallons of gas, which is insane. So it's like a sipper, you know, and I hate to like rave about stuff, but I'm really kind of impressed, and I really hope we get to keep this thing for the 24-hour. Something else, if you are an endurance racer, apparently, Brent says, who's the light expert, the thing makes 100 watts of power. And if we were to run this at the 24-hour, we could run our light system with a backup battery on the handlebar that you literally only would change once in the entire race. So that's something to think about too when you're dealing with something. If you're doing certain types of races, you can really drive yourself nuts with lighting and having to deal with that. And this bike makes it really easy, which is cool.
If you liked what you saw in this video, come check us out over at dirtbiketest.com on the webs. We have bike tests, product tests, a lot of fresh dirt, and you can even support us by clicking through our links. Hopefully, we'll see you out in the trail.